Conversation with the new head of the Urban League of Greater Madison this morning on For the Record. Good morning, I'm Neil Heinen. It is a measure of the growing role played by the Urban League of Greater Madison that the process of finding someone to succeed Kaleem Kerr as president and CEO was watched with such anticipation. And it is a tribute to the man selected, Dr. Ruben Anthony, that the choice was greeted with such excitement and enthusiasm. We will talk about the present and future of the Urban League, as well as a Greater Madison that is dealing with well-documented challenges, as I welcome to For the Record, Dr. Ruben Anthony. I also welcome to the first of what will undoubtedly be many appearances on For the Record, the new editor of Madison Magazine, Karen Lincoln Michelle. Karen, first of all, welcome.
Thank you, Neil.
Welcome to Madison. Welcome to the magazine.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
That position means you're going to be on this show a lot, just so you,
okay,
just so you know.
Great. Looking forward to it.
Dr. Anthony, nice to see you.
Good morning.
Congratulations on the hire.
Thank you very much.
I assume you agree with the fact that the attention paid to this position was greater than I remember in a long, long time. And I think it's a reflection of how people are looking at the Urban League right now.
Yeah, I really think that people want the Urban League to be a voice as we are going through challenges in this community. Historically, the Urban League has played a major leadership role. And we expect that the Urban League will be fully engaged in this community as we talk about working together to get through the many challenges that we have in this community.
Now, just by way of an introduction, tell us a little bit about your background, your experiences, and how they all kind of came together, Dr. Anthony, to lead you to seek out this position.
Yeah, well, first of all, to me, it's all about community service. You know, finding a way that we can serve this community and make this community a better place for all. My background, my academic background is in urban and regional planning. I have a master's degree in urban regional planning from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Then I have a PhD in urban studies and community development from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And most of my career, indirectly, I've tried to find a way to make urban areas better. I spent the largest part of my career, maybe 20 years or so, at the Department of Transportation. The last 8 years that I was at the Department of Transportation, I was the Chief Operating Officer and the Deputy Secretary. And so at the Department of Transportation, I look for opportunities to make urban areas better by creating jobs and creating access to opportunity, and also by helping with business development in the community. So as we had these mega projects coming down the pike, we had the Marquette Interchange in Milwaukee, which was an $800 million project. You know, I spent time, figuring out, how we can put people to work, how we can develop jobs, and we did a good job. We had a 25% minority labor participation on the project. We also had a 20% minority and disadvantaged business goal accomplished on the project. This project and what we did on other mega projects throughout the state caught a lot of national attention from the Federal Highway Administration. Following that, I went on a tour with the Federal Highway Administration to talk to other states about how to create access to opportunity, how to put our minority and disadvantaged people on jobs. And so for me, having this opportunity to serve the Madison Urban League and to be full-time figuring out, how we can create jobs, how we can develop children, and how we can develop this community is something that I always wanted to do, and I'm just happy now that I have the opportunity to serve in that role and to provide these types of opportunities for folks of the Greater Madison area.
What was your perception of the Urban League, Ruben? Watching it from from afar before you decided to get interested.
I always saw the Urban League as a great resource for this community. And while I'm here, I want the Urban League to create the perception or to be a place that people see that it is theirs. The Urban League is the community's organization. It's a community resource. And historically, the Urban League has been a wayfinding organization. During the 1920s and up until the 1960s, 1970s, as African Americans were migrating north and looking for opportunities, the Urban League was there, because when they came to the cities like Milwaukee, Detroit, and all these other places for manufacturing opportunities, the Urban League was there as a wayfinder to help them to find jobs, to help them to find housing, housing, to help them to find education. And for me, the Urban League was the same way. When we first came to Madison, my wife actually went to the Urban League and found a job, and she was there working with Project Jamal, for 5 years. So we've been a part of the Urban League family a long time. When I was a youth, I played in the Whitney Young projects in New York, and I also was a recipient of many of the programs that they had at the Urban League. So coming here, I've always seen the Urban League as a resource to the community and as a beacon of hope, and we expect to continue down that path.
What people might not know, Project Jamal was a very important education initiative that the Urban League instituted.
That's right. Yeah. Project Jamal was kind of the predecessor to the Schools of Hope. Right now, we're the Urban League is engaged in the Schools of Hope, partnering with United Way at the middle school level to provide after-school tutoring and assistance to children.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, times are really changing. Do you think the Urban League, too, needs to change?
Well, the one thing that I can tell you is that the Urban League is on solid ground. When you start a new opportunity, sometimes you have questions about what you're going to find when you go in there. But you've got, people in that Urban League that have been serving this community for a long time. Like our Ed Lee has been there a long time, and very committed to what he does. Jim Horn has been there for a long time. Hetty Rudd, and all these folks that we have doing our programs in the schools, they're very solid. And I really think that we're headed in the right direction. And I'm very proud and happy to be a part of an organization that's dedicated to doing the things that this Urban League is doing.
You know what? Let's take a break. I want to transition into the work that's been done in anticipation of District Attorney Ozan's decision in the Tony Robinson case. And let's take a break, and we'll come back. We'll start with that right after this.
Okay.
Madison Magazine editor Karen Michelle and I are back, and our guest this morning is Dr. Ruben Anthony, the new president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Madison. And you begin this job, Ruben, with a lot of interest and uncertainty surrounding the decision that District Attorney Ozan's going to make on the officer-involved shooting of Tony Peterson. What I want to Tony Robinson. What I want to get to is that over this last 3-4 weeks, there's been a tremendous amount of discussion going on. A lot of community groups working together. The Urban League has been right at the heart of that. Help us understand how these conversations have been taking place and how you expect them to play out when District Attorney Ozan does make his ruling.
Yeah, you're correct. There have been a lot of people and a lot of organizations who have expressed concern and who have been committed to early proactive steps in finding ways that we can make the community ready for peaceful involvement after the decision has been made. There's a Black Leadership Coalition consisting of the NAACP, the African American Council of Churches, Black Greek organizations, and just a bunch of community leaders that are getting together to talk about what they can do to make a difference. At the same time, you have community organizations who have come together, the United Way, the Madison Metropolitan Schools, you have the police and sheriff departments, the university's police, and just a whole group of folks that have said, let's get together and talk about what we can do to make ready for that decision. You've had law students come together through the coordination of Stan Davis, a local attorney here, to talk to people about what is the process, what is the role and responsibility of the Attorney General's office, what is the role and responsibility of the DA's office, and then what is the final role of Chief Koval. But then also, this is the first, or not the first, but one of the first times where the police shooting is being independently investigated. So getting people to understand what that process is has been critical. But at the same time, you have groups that are saying that we want to be an option as there is peaceful protests and demonstrations going on, you want like a peacekeeping group. Bishop Rayford is over the African American Council of Churches, and he's made a commitment to organize the churches to make sure that as there is engagement going on in the community, that people have an option to come and be a part of a peacekeeping group. At the same time, you have the community organizations with United Way and other folks doing similar coordination to kind of reach out to people and talk to them after that decision is being made about where you can come and where you can peacefully be involved in the dialogue that's going on. The Urban League expects to be a safe site, you know, if people want to talk about what's going on. Possibly there might be a videotape of the work that Stan Davis and the law school students have done where people can come and learn about the process. The good thing about this whole situation is that the community is coming together because they really want us to be one Madison community at the end of the day. The shooting is a tragedy, right? And it's hard on all of us. But we have to make sure that we do things here the way that we do them in Madison, because there's so much pressure from the national backdrop and what we see happening in Baltimore, what we see happening in Ferguson and things like that. We have to pull on our resources in this city to come together to find a way that we can constructively work together to get through this challenging time for the city of Madison. And you know, the thing that I'm comfortable about is that I know that we have the collective will in this city to get through this and keep Madison whole.
You know, the DA's office has said they would give 48 hours notice. Do you have a plan as to what will happen in that when first you hear that the decision is coming in 48 hours?
Yeah, I think it's essential for that 48-hour notice to come and for the organizations to have time to do planning and for the readiness that you really need to have occur in this community. So the 48 hours is good. It would be also good if the decision is not made at night. It would also be good if the decision is not made during the weekend. But if the decision is made during the time, you know, where it's maybe like during the daytime where you have, you know, people at work and not really the opportunity to really kind of cause a lot of disruption. So it is good to have the notice, and that gives the community groups an opportunity to organize and do what they need to do.
People watching this on Sunday on television might wonder that we're recording this show a little bit earlier in the week, so we don't know yet as we sit here when that decision is going to be made. Dr. Anthony, there is a role for young people here that is. You know, some people are viewing it as a very positive and exciting opportunity for young people to speak up and to be accountable, and others are worried about the young people. The Urban League has a very active young component to it, but talk to me, what connection does the Urban League have with some of the young activists that we're seeing speak up during this time?
But one of the things that I will address is that the Urban League has young professionals, and a lot of times the work that they're doing does not get recognized. Nia Trimmel, who is currently the board president of the Urban League, was the young professionals president, and she's transitioning out. But they're raising money, you know, for education. They're volunteering at different events.
They just had a really successful event a couple of weeks ago.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, you know, we don't really pay attention to what productive young people are doing like they are. We focus on some of the other things. And so, I mean, it's going to be a challenge, but I think that we have to make sure that young voices are heard, you know, and we have to make sure that young people have an opportunity to express their civil disobedience. We got to do that. Michael Johnson had a youth summit this past weekend that worked out wonderful. I had the opportunity to sit in on one of the breakout groups where it was the room was filled, maybe with about 50, 60 young people, young men, talking about, you know, some of the things that they're concerned about, you know, and we actually had a question posed to that group, and we asked the group, what are you worried about? And are you worried about living long lives? And they asked the question, how many of you expect that you're going to live longer than 21? And almost 25, 30% of the young men in that room put their hands up and said, they're not expecting to live beyond 21. That's a tragedy, right? And that's a community issue where we need to come together and we need to make sure that young people in this community feel like they have access to opportunity and that they're going to be safe. We got to make sure that we're taking steps to do that. And that means that we have to continue to invest in opportunities for jobs. You know, during the summer, we have to find ways to have these young people have pathways to colleges or other types of careers. Because the last thing that we want, you know, for these young people is for them to have to get their education in the criminal justice system and then come back in this community. We want to make sure that, again, they have an opportunity to express, you know, their opinions and that they have a seat at the table and that we're finding resources to help make them productive in this society.
I want to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about your vision for the future of the Urban League, and we'll do that when we come back right after this.
Thank you.
We are back with the new president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Madison, Dr. Ruben Anthony. And the next question is from my colleague, Madison Magazine editor Karen Lincoln-Michelle.
Yes, you know, the issue of race relations has been in the media a lot lately, both nationally and locally. So I wanted to know how you see that media coverage. Has it been fair? Has it been accurate?
Yeah, the media coverage has depicted most of the, I would say, sensational things that are going on. I don't think the media does a good job highlighting African American youth and African Americans who are doing positive things. I think that we have to, you know, find a way to highlight the great things that they're doing. Even at the Urban League, they're doing a lot of good things, but before getting there, I didn't hear a whole lot of coverage from the media about the things that they're doing there. And so I don't know if it's because people just like to hear drama or bad things, but we don't hear a whole lot of positiveness from the media about the things that African Americans are doing, other than on the field playing basketball or playing football. I think we have to kind of have a refocus, and we have to look at the successes. Madison has some of the most successful African Americans in the country, you know, here, and we don't highlight their work. And I think the media has to do a better job highlighting their work and move away, you know, from a lot of the negative images. And so I think we have some work to do in the media with these situations that are going on. One of the things that's troubling is the preponderance, you know, of these African American men being killed in different places, and the media has covered a lot of that. And so that national backdrop, you know, I think that has been an accurate depiction of a problem that's going on that needs to be addressed. And but at the same time, it causes a lot of frustration locally when we do have incidents occur here. But so it's going to take a lot, you know, and the media has to be a part of helping make Madison a better place by giving better stories and putting out positive images about African American youth and other African Americans.
The so-called mainstream media, I would direct everybody's attention to Umoja.
Absolutely.
And the Capital City Hues, and where exactly the kind of stories you're talking about are there every single issue.
That's right. They do. Now those media outlets do a great job of telling the stories about positive news, and they make a great effort to do that. And that's probably one of the few places where we can get positive stories or a different point of view.
Yeah. Ruben, is it important for you to at this point, put your stamp on the Urban League? What is it important for people to know, what is Dr. Anthony's vision for the Urban League moving forward?
Yeah, well first of all, as I mentioned earlier, the Urban League is a historical institution that's been around for a long time. And so we are not going in a drastically different direction than the historic characteristics that the Urban League has had. But one of the things that I want to emphasize to this community is that the Urban League is your Urban League, right? The Urban League is a community resource that we have there for you. If you need training, if you need to find a way into home ownership, the Urban League is there for you. The Urban League will stick to this wayfinding mission that they initially had when they were formed. And as I mentioned earlier, the Urban League was formed in about 1920, and as people came from the South into the cities, they were looking for ways to integrate into society. But when they came here, they found disparities and discriminations in housing and work and all those other places. So the Urban League has to be a wayfinder to kind of help people, but at the same time, the Urban League has to be a community advocate. And so we'll advocate, to eradicate institutional biases and help put compliance plans together, compliance strategies together, so that we can rid Madison, the greater Madison area, of these types of barriers to access to opportunity and those sorts of things. The Urban League also has to be a convener, to a bridge builder, to sit down and talk to other organizations who are vested in making this community the best community that it can be. And so we'll do that. We'll cooperate and sit down and make sure that there's multiple voices sitting around the table. There's not just one voice in the community that represents the African American community or the community in general. We need to continue to have a multifaceted discussion in this community, where you have young people at the table, where you have older statespeople at the table, and you just have a variety of voices sitting around talking about, what are the challenges and how we can exceed those challenges. We want to be a part of facilitating those discussions and helping move Madison forward.
We just have 30 seconds left. I assume because of your experience in government, that includes government as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Dr. Anthony, thanks very much.
Thank you.
I hope we'll make this a regular occurrence, that you come on For the Record and spend time talking to us.
Anytime you need me to come talk to you, I'd be
Karen,
willing to
welcome.
talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to come back and wrap up For the Record right after this. My thanks to Dr. Ruben Anthony and to Madison Magazine editor Karen Michelle. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next Sunday on For the Record.